I heard you guys like Mega Evolution. It's time to break down 10 amazing possible Mega Evolutions for Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Let's jump into it.
Butterfree, go!
Yo, whoa, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka A-Drive. I bring you guys a brand new video today, and today we're gonna dive into 10 possible Mega Evolutions for the Sinnoh remakes, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. If you guys didn't see it, I made a video about a week back where I actually broke down 10 Mega Evolutions for the games after we saw some merchandise leaks of Mega Lucario and Mega Charizard X that may point us in the direction of getting Mega Evolutions added to the Sinnoh remake games. I am a huge fan of Mega Evolutions. I quite like them a lot. I think it's fun to theorize and just conceptualize and imaginate all these amazing Pokemon. Is imaginate a word? Oh, imaginate works. It says it's an adjective. So we're gonna break them down, and I actually took some comments from our last video in the comments section below. So if you guys want me to make a follow-up video to this one, let me know what you think I missed in the comments section. And if you haven't yet, be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, as I make Pokemon videos every single day, and you do not want to miss our amazing coverage here of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and of course, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Let's jump into the Megas. Alright, so kicking things off, this was a comment in the last video, and that is Gliscor. Gliscor is a super unique Pokemon, having the ground and flying typing, which seems very counterintuitive, but really epic. And it's known for having Poison Heal. Like, that's its kind of bread and butter. Getting toxic, using Poison Heal, and healing itself up with, like, Substitute and Protect. But unfortunately, Megas can't have held items, so giving him Poison Heal without being able to hold the Toxic Orb doesn't make a ton of sense. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give him Poison Touch, because I've always felt like he's kind of a Scorpion. He should definitely have some sort of vibe with that. And we're gonna see different stat buffs here, right? We're gonna give 100 base stat to pretty much every Pokemon. So I think you give him a nice little attack buff up to 135, give him a nice defense buff up to 145, make him very physically defensive, 95 on the special defense, and then give him a little bit of a speed buff. And I feel like that could actually make him pretty good. I could see him utilizing things like Swords Dance and then dealing massive damage. Obviously, the potential for poisoning things is really cool. So I would love to see a Gliscor kind of built out with a Mega Evolution. It's hard to say that it's going to be more effective without having that kind of Toxic Orb healing ability, the kind of stalling defensive set that it has, but its typing is so great from a defensive perspective, minus those ice type moves. So I really think that this kind of spread could make him really neat. I know we all want to just say Mega Yanmega, and I want a Yanmega Mega so badly. This Pokemon most certainly should be a Dragon type, so we're going to change it to Bug and Dragon, and this would become our first ever Bug and Dragon, much like Altaria Mega evolved into Mega Altaria to become the first ever Fairy Dragon. Really cool stuff. Now, in terms of its stats, we're going to give him a nice little buff to his attack to utilize things like U-Turn. His defense, his special defense gets slight buffs. Really, the special attack is going to be where we're going to see the difference. We're going to give him a massive special attack buff, and we're going to also give him a little bit of a speed buff. Now, one of the things I love about Mega Yanmega is, much like Sharpedo, you can utilize speed boost on a regular Yanmega and then Mega Evolve. In terms of abilities, a couple different ideas are multi-scale, kind of like Dragonite has, allowing you to take those super effective hits, like rock moves, like ice moves. Berserk, which I kind of like. If he gets knocked below half of his health, it would actually multiply his special attack by 50%. And then I also like the idea of Compound Eyes. Now, we're saying here that we're going to lose the flying typing in favor of Dragon, but I think it'd be really sick if he did have Compound Eyes and moves like Hurricane, Draco Meteor, things like that. That would actually make Yanmega incredible. I don't know if you'd be able to give it Draco Meteor, though, because it wouldn't be a dragon before, but still really epic. This is a Pokemon that has a really cool design and can deal some massive damage. Giving it that special attack buff and a little bit of a speed buff can make all the difference for Yanmega. Mega Yanmega. The next Pokemon we're going to take a look at is Mismagius. Mismagius is a super cool Ghost-type Pokemon that could use a little bit of extra love. It's got a unique stat distribution with base 60 across the board for HP, attack, and defense, and then 105 for the special attack, special defense, and speed. In this context, I'm actually going to keep its HP, attack, and defense, and then simply buff its special attack and speed and special defense up to 135. This one I only gave 90 points to instead of 100, just because I felt like it was nice to keep it nice and even, just like its kind of non-mega form was. And then in terms of abilities, I feel like you'd go a couple routes. I like Levitate on it, but I think we want to spice it up. I do think we make this thing a Ghost and Fairy typing instead of just pure Ghost. It does have some really cool moves like Dazzling Gleam that it could take advantage of by becoming a Fairy type, give it Moonblast. In terms of abilities, though, I'm feeling like Prankster is a very typical ability for Ghost types. We see it with Mega Banette. Maybe we try to do something a little bit more unique, like Competitive, to boost its special attack if its stats are lowered. Or I like the ability Wandering Spirit, which is the signature ability of Cofagrigus, where it passes on the ability Wandering Spirit to other Pokemon. It wouldn't really benefit Mismagius. I think Competitive or Prankster would probably make the most sense, but it could be really cool as a Pokemon getting a little bit of a buff across the board and would certainly help out Fantina in the Sinnoh region. A lot of people in the comment section mentioned Electivire and Magmortar, the two evolutions that were added in the Sinnoh region to Magmar and Electabuzz. But we're gonna look at Electivire first, and it's funny because I remember when Electivire first was revealed as a Pokemon, it was so busted alongside Gyarados. In fact, there was a metagame or kind of a strategy called Garavire where you put Gyarados and Electivire next to each other because it would protect Gyarados from those Ledge-type moves. But it has fallen from grace significantly since then, and that's mostly because it's very frail. It has some pretty good offensive stats, but it's got a weird distribution. It's a little on the slow side too, so we're gonna fix some of those things. We're gonna potentially consider giving it the fighting typing, maybe the dark typing to go with its electric typing. We'll keep it electric for the purpose of this, but there are some options there. And then in terms of abilities, obviously Motor Drive is kind of its signature thing. Gets hit by electric move, gets a boost. Molga has it as well. But I like Electric Surge on this. I feel like Electivire getting a Mega means he's like really charged up. And I feel like if he's really charged up, like he plugged into a socket and it was like a really powerful socket. My man is setting up Electric Surge, no doubt about it. So we're talking about a buff here. I'm gonna give him a 30 buff to his attack. This thing is one of those things where like, I could see it getting a massive attack buff, but I want to give him a little bit of bulk on his defense and special defense, and then I actually want to buff his special attack because he's got some pretty good special attacking moves, and I think that Electivire is a unique Pokemon that can utilize both its physical attack and its special attack with moves like Flamethrower, with moves like Volt Switch. I feel like those should not be undersold. And then we're going to give him a buff to his speed, which is one of the things that he really needs. 115 base speed. Electric types are often very fast in general, so he's got a lot of competition there, but I think being a physically attacking electric type with a good speed stat and okay natural bulk could make a Mega Electivire pretty powerful. Now, if we look at Electivire, we gotta look at Magmortar. Magmortar here, a very awkward looking fire type Pokemon, but I think a Mega Evolution like this could do it some justice here. Its base stats, again, very frail, especially on the physical side. We're gonna give him a nice little buff to his attack, same kind of situation. Little buff to his defenses. His special attack, we're gonna go sky high though. We're gonna go up to 165, putting him in the range of like those Mega Camerubs and some of the hardest hitting special attackers in the game. And then a slight buff to speed. Not quite enough to get over the 100 base speed mark, but enough to give him a little bit of speed so he can be an offensive threat. In terms of abilities though, I think you gotta look at Drought, which may just be super busted. Solar Power as well. I really like that on Mega Houndoom. I think a pure fire typing with Solar Power could be really, really sick, allowing him to just hit in the sunlight, just hit incredibly powerful attacks. If you've ever seen me in the competitions of Draft League, I had a season where I used Mega Houndoom with Solar Power, and the things that, like, nothing switches into a Sun boosted, Solar Power boosted Mega Houndoom's Fire Blast. Like, it is stupid amounts of damage, and Magmortar would be able to do something similar. So I think that could be really cool. Again, I'm not a huge Magmortar fan myself, but I felt like you guys were representing it, and I wanted to show it off here for this video, and I just noticed my Frostmoth's chilling on the floor, so I'm gonna go pick it up. Isn't this such a sick plushie? Could we get a Mega Frostmoth? That'd be sick. Probably the most requested Mega Evolution of all time is, of course, Mega Flygon. Flygon, an amazing, amazing design that seemingly got skipped over when it came to Mega Evolutions. Who knows what happened there? But I think a lot of people want to see it be a Bug Dragon. For the purposes of this video, we're actually going to keep it ground and dragon because Yanmega is going to be the first Bug Dragon in my mind here. But its stats are pretty well rounded, right? We got 100 attack, 100 speed, 80 across the board. Otherwise, we're going to kind of flip that formula on its head. We're going to give him 140 attack, 90 on the special defenses, 100 special attack, because I do think it's still usable. And then I want to give him a buff to 120 speed, puts him above a lot of the metagame, but not so crazy fast. And this gives him a good enough attack stat to utilize things like Earthquake and U-Turn and Dragon Claw, a good enough special attack stat to be able to Draco Meteor and run, as well as use moves like Fire Blast to deal a little bit of higher base power on that special side. In terms of abilities, I mean, you could go a couple different ways with this. I like Tinted Lens. I feel like its eyes really look like that could work, which would allow its Draco Meteors and other moves like that, Earthquake, to just deal massive damage. Speed Boost is another one that I like, kind of being able to pick up speed alongside the idea of Sand Rush, which could double its speed in sandstorms, and like I said, kind of doubling down on the ground typing as opposed to shying away from it to make it bug type. And then I also like the idea of Sheer Force, kind of sacrificing secondary effects to deal more damage. That would more so benefit a specially attacking Flygon because of moves like Earth Power and Fire Blast, but I do think that there's something to be said there with some of its physical moves like Thunder Punch and Fire Punch, being able to get a little bit of a buff on those. So a lot of different options here. This would make it a pretty versatile Pokemon, and I've always loved Flygon. So this is one of those where, like, if they kind of butcher the design, it's going to be a little disappointing, but if they made a Mega Flygon and hit a home run, it'll definitely be a fan favorite. Toxicroak is another Pokemon that was requested a lot in the comment section, and I was kind of surprised to see how many people really stand behind Toxicroak. This is a Pokemon that can utilize a few different sets as it stands right now, one of which is like a Nasty Plot Vacuum Wave set, another of which is a physical attacking Swords Dancing Mach Punch set. I aim to kind of work with both of those as a Mega Evolution. Same kind of thing, right? We're gonna give a nice buff to his attack, his special attack a little bit, his speed a little bit. Just a well-rounded buff where like almost all of his stats are kind of gaining there. Physically attacking is gonna be his main kind of priority. But I think the ability is where Toxicroak gets interesting. It's this really super cool Poison Dart Frog, and I feel like there's a couple ways you go about this. One, you look at making a new ability where he automatically poisons the opposing Pokemon when it enters the field. Maybe a little busted. You could also say another automatic ability where he kind of sets up Toxic Spikes when he enters the field. Again, maybe a little busted. I would say another option is an existing ability called Merciless, which we see on Toxapex. Toxapex with Merciless allows it to basically get a critical hit every time it attacks a Pokemon that's poisoned. I feel like in the context of Toxicroak, that actually could be really cool, giving him the opportunity to, again, critically hit any Pokemon that attacks that's already poisoned. It would take a little bit of team support, but with that paired with a decent attack and special attack stat, a little bit more bulk and an okay typing in terms of resistances, there's a lot of potential there for a Pokemon like this to set up and then start firing away really powerful moves, especially with priority, that could always crit. I like those ideas, and I think Toxicroak could get a little bit of love and be a lot cooler if it got a Mega Evolution. I mentioned in the last video that I wanted a Mega Maltham because it's one of my favorite Pokemon, of course, and I think it's only fair that we address Vespiquen in this video, another Pokemon that is native to the Sinnoh region, of course, the evolved form of Combee. Now, Vespiquen is very, very bulky, but is garbage and competitive because of its 4x weakness to Stealth Rock, so on entry has a little bit of a struggle, and obviously we wouldn't be able to run heavy-duty boots if we're running a Mega Stone, but I got some cool ideas. The first thing we're going to do here is actually buff his attack just ever so slightly, take his average 80 attack, give it 100, that's going to make him not an offensive threat, but he can at least do a little bit more damage. And then we're going to just buff his defenses the rest of the way, lower his speed to give him a little bit more bulk. So the objective here with this Vespiquen is to just make him incredibly, incredibly tanky. And then I think what you could do is a handful of things. I was trying to come up with some ideas in terms of an ability to make it unique. Maybe something where the Combees kind of act as a substitute and take damage. Maybe something is in the Combees act as like kind of a parental bond where they attack for less damage multiple times. But ultimately, I came up with an idea. I'll call it Hive Mind just because I think the pun is good there. But the idea is that Vespiquen, when it enters the field and Mega Evolves, it sets up Infestation on the opposing Pokemon. Now, Infestation is a really cool move that's exclusive to bug types. Well, exclusive. It's a bug type move that a lot of bug types get, rather. And Infestation traps the opposing Pokemon and then deals a little bit of chip damage every turn. So Vespiquen, being an incredibly bulky Mega Evolution, having that, the ability to trap and also whittle away, could make it really, really strong. It can make it actually one of the most unique and competitive Pokemon in the metagame. Even though it has a bad typing and not very offensive, we think of Pokemon that can trap like Mega Gengar or like a Gothitelle. Being able to trap can be incredibly powerful, especially with a Pokemon this bulky. So I could see this being one of the most busted Pokemon. It would most certainly get banned in standard play, at least Smogon play, but it would be really, really cool to see Vespiquen do some damage. In the last video, we talked about a lot of the early game Pokemon like Luxray and Staraptor, but I left out Bibarel. Bibarel, the beaver Pokemon known for its ability Simple, we're going to really try to add on top of that. It's got decent attack, pretty low bulk, okay speed, very mediocre at best, but by giving it a little bit of attack buff and then primarily a special defense and defense buff, we can actually make Bibarel a little bit better. And again, we're going to try to take advantage of its Simple ability. The thing about Simple is it's going to double the effects of stat boost. So one use of the move Curse will actually double your attack and defense as opposed to just doing it one stage. You could also do things like Swords Dance to get not only +2, but actually +4. And it does have some priority moves like Quick Attack. I'm not quite sure if it gets Aqua Jet, but if not, we're going to give that to him as well. And then you have a Pokemon that all of a sudden could actually be decent because you're giving him that little bit of defense buff that it needs. Again, I'm not saying Bibarel's about to sweep the competitive metagame, but a world where there's a simple Bibarel that can go for Swords Dance and actually live a hit and then fire off priority moves, that could be a pretty sick cleaner Pokemon that's relatively unique. And last but certainly not least, we've got Mamoswine. I would love to see some love for Mamoswine. This is one of my favorite kind of Gen 4 Pokemon, and I've just always thought it was such a great design. This is where we take things to a maximum, much like Mega Heracross. We're going to throw a lot of attack on this guy. He's going to become a 180 base attack monster. We're going to give him a little bit of defense, a little bit of special defense, and a little bit of special attack, because I don't think we should underestimate the power of Freeze Dry coming off of Mamoswine. I know it sounds a little weird, but it allows him to hit certain Pokemon like Rotom Wash super effectively. It's pretty cool. And we're actually gonna slow him down. We're gonna actually make him slower, which may be counterintuitive, but let's just say his tusks freeze over and now he's really heavy, he's even slower. In terms of abilities though, that's where things get a little tricky. Snow Warning is pretty cool, but he wouldn't really be able to take advantage of it because he's not gonna be clicking Blizzard. Well, base 90 special attack ain't bad, but he's with that physical attack, you ain't clicking Blizzard. Otherwise, Skill Link I thought was kind of cool, being able to use moves like Icicle Spear, hit it 5 times, that would be dope, kind of like Mega Heracross. I like Icy Wind being kind of like an entry effect where like he enters the field and maybe he does like a Sticky Web effect to the opposing Pokemon, slows them down by a stage. Otherwise, I like Intimidate. I think being able to drop attack stats against a Pokemon that's pretty naturally bulky in general, especially once it gets a Mega Evolution, is always nice because you're gonna slow yourself down, so you're gonna have to take a hit generally before you fire something back. But I just love me some Mamoswine, and I would love to see it get some love in Sinnoh remakes. So obviously, this is a lot of speculation, but it's a ton of fun to discuss Mega Evolutions, and I'm a huge fan of Megas, if you guys haven't figured that out yet. I just love Megas, and I really hope that they do indeed 100% come back to the Sinnoh remakes, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Let me know in the comment section below if there's a Mega Pokemon that you want to see that you think I missed. Maybe we'll make another video, and hit that like button down below if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. You don't want to miss out on our Brilliant Diamond, Shining Sword, or Legends Arceus coverage, and I've got a great Let's Play going on, Pokemon Xenoverse, TCG openings, and much, much more. Thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. If you guys enjoyed this video, check out this one right here. Otherwise, you should totally check out this video. They're both awesome, you're pretty awesome, and I'll see you guys on the next one.